It's important to study organisms in their natural habitats, where we can observe things like their behaviors and habits, how they change over time and space, variations among individuals, and their interactions with their environments. Catching birds in the wild is accomplished by using mist nets. Mist nets are made of a very thin mesh that is nearly invisible, so flying birds often don't see it crossing their paths. I had set up the mist nets a few days ahead of time, but I left them closed so that nothing would become trapped when the nets were unattended. The first step is to untie the flagging tape. Then the nets are unfurled. The net is held up by tension on 5 thick cords running between 2 poles. The rest of the net is loose, so a bird hitting it falls gently into a pocket. The loops that attach the support cords to the poles are spread out, making the net about 3 meters high. I have to use a stick to help me push the top loops up. Most of the birds I caught during this netting session were very easy to remove. They have to be removed from the side of the net they flew into, which isn't always obvious at first glance. Once that's determined, the bird is held loosely to support its body while pulling the net off of it. Wings and heads tend to slip out of the mesh of the net quite easily. Sometimes feet and claws are more challenging, especially when the bird clenches its toes tightly. Even tongues can get caught. Bird tongues contain a bone with 2 backward-facing extensions that can get hooked on the net. Because I cannot meet with my students in person this spring, I am using technology to have them join me virtually. One of my classes saw a live stream of the netting from my phone, which I carried with me, and from my laptop, which was in my makeshift bird lab in the back of my car. Other students will see this because I was simultaneously recording photos and videos on 2 other devices. My hands were full. The goal of mist netting is to observe the birds in a way that is not possible without handling them. For students, this might also be their first opportunity to hold a wild animal, to look at its eyes, to feel it breathing, and to touch its feathers and feet. The birds are identified, measurements are taken, and samples are collected. Here, with so much going on, I didn't collect any feathers or drops of blood. Instead, I made note of the species identification of each bird. I recorded its mass by weighing the bird in a bag and then subtracting the mass of the bag alone. The wing cord, which is the length from the wrist to the tip of the primary feathers, is measured with a special ruler. Sometimes it's difficult to determine the sex of the bird if males and females have the same plumage. But during breeding season, there can be some clues. Females sitting on eggs will have a brood patch, which is a bare area of skin on the belly, wrinkled because of the extra blood supply in the skin used for keeping the eggs warm. When observations are done, the birds are released unharmed. At the end of the netting session, the nets are closed by pushing the 5 loops back together, taking care not to allow the net to become snagged on twigs and leaves. The nets can be taken down, but I will leave these up for another netting session soon.